religions can have incredibly moving stories. Toward the end of the last episode, Dr. Patrick Mason and I were talking about how the story of Jesus is one that stands out. Dr. Mason said that at the root of religions, there's a story which tends to flip the script. We talked about Apollonius and how his story is one that is very similar to Jesus's, but what makes Jesus's story so much more powerful and stand out is that he dies in the end. There's a sense of devastation in the end of our main character's story, but it's also beautifully poetic that he dies for us, to forgive our sins. I want to talk more about what led me to thinking about religions as incredible works of art. I've mentioned that it's like a feeling of watching an amazing movie or listening to an incredible album, but I haven't given any particular experiences I've had. After recording the last episode, me and Dr. Mason talked about how Star Wars also flips the script and is one of the most memorable movie series today. Now, there are a lot of people who would be better than me at telling you a lot more about Star Wars and what makes it so good, but I want to tell you about a conversation I had with my brother. My brother, who's atheist, is someone who's very passionate about the things he gets excited about. We got to talking about Star Wars, and he started telling me about how incredible the story is, because the Chosen One becomes the main villain, which is an incredible plot twist. After listening and talking with him about that for a while, I asked him, so the plot twist is what makes the series incredible and stand out? And he said, yeah, definitely. Then I asked him if he could think about viewing Christianity through the same lens, thinking with a fresh mind, what Jesus' story might have made the early followers feel. This incredible story where Jesus comes to fulfill the complex tradition of the Israelites as their Messiah, and in the end he dies for us. That's an incredible story with an insane plot twist. I could imagine parents telling their kids, almost like a campfire story, leaving the kids in shock and giving them the chills, kind of like watching Star Wars unfold for the first time. My brother kind of laughed. He liked the idea of it, but it didn't change what Christianity actually meant to him. But I do want to take this idea seriously, really looking at religions differently, not just in the Jesus story, or even Christianity as a whole, but seeing all religions through this lens. So what about Judaism? In my religion and film class, we talked briefly about a movie called A Serious Man by the Coen brothers, and we talked about how it's regarded as the most Jewish movie. Not just that the movie is about a Jewish man, and there's a lot of Jewish people in his life, but that the movie itself, and the story it tells, is a very Jewish way of thinking, or telling a story. In the movie, Larry, the main character, is struggling with a lot of things going what he feels like is wrong. He eventually talks to a rabbi about why God would be doing all these things to him, why God would be punishing him or trying to teach him a lesson. The first rabbi he talks to gives him some advice which he doesn't really know how to make useful. But what the second rabbi tells him is something that I think is really important to the story. He tells him a story about a goy, or a non-Jewish person, who has Hebrew writing engraved in the back of his teeth. His Jewish dentist finds the writing which reads, "Help me, save me." The rabbi tells a long story about how the dentist spent day and night trying to decode the message. Who was sending it? Where did it come from? Was it a message for him? Who needed help? All sorts of things. And he loses sleep and energy over worrying about this. Then, the rabbi stops talking, like he's finished with the story. Larry looks at him confused and asks what the end of the story is, and what the answer to all the dentist's questions are. And the rabbi just says, "Does it matter?" This story that the rabbi tells parallels a conversation that Larry, who's a physics professor, and a student of his have at the beginning of the movie. The student fails a midterm because he didn't know he needed to study mathematics for the test, but he said that he knew the physics story about Schrodinger's cat. He said he understands the story about the cat. Larry looks at the kid and says, "But the mathematics are the whole point. I don't even understand the cat. That's just a story. The mathematics are what matter." My takeaway is that Larry struggles to apply this same kind of thinking to his religious life or life as a whole. It's not about the stories in the Hebrew Bible. It's about the so-called mathematics of it. It's this different way of approaching thought or stories that I find incredibly powerful within Judaism. My experience with studying Judaism is through Dr. Eliza Rosenberg's class, Introduction to the Old Testament. In this class, we did a lot of writing assignments called exegesis papers, which means to work from the inside out, not from the outside in. I struggled for a long time to understand what exactly Dr. Rosenberg wanted from me while writing these papers, and I got really frustrated with bad grades on papers I thought I did a good job with. It wasn't until about the last 3 weeks of class, when I was working on writing the final project, which was made up of 3 separate 4-page papers, on one word. Blood was the word I chose. It wasn't until then that I finally understood the class and what Dr. Rosenberg was teaching us. I was writing these papers, spending hours of my days at the library picking apart everything I could, finding every bit of information about what and why the word blood was used in just one Bible verse for each of the papers I wrote. It was while I was finishing this project that I realized how incredible it was that I was able to find enough information about one word in the Bible to write 12 pages about it. The goal was not to say what the word meant metaphorically, but to say why the word was chosen to be used at all. What does the word mean? When have they used it before? Why? Why use the word blood? It all started clicking for me just how poetic these texts were. Poetic in a way I had never been able to know before. And it's that realization, that feeling that I had, which was the first time I was ever able to feel like religion was more than I could have imagined. Dr. Rosenberg taught me a new way of viewing something I thought I was familiar with, and it's still hard to describe how differently we were approaching it and the kind of poetry I found than what I thought there was to be found in the Old Testament. She taught me all this not by telling me, but by making me figure it out for myself, which made the impact of my realization hit me so much harder. The interview with Dr. Rosenberg for episode 2 is being delayed. Follow the Instagram page to get updates on when the interview will be published. Thank you.